Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, and welcome back. So, we're moving into modernism with Thomas Hardy, and even though he was born in the Victorian age, literary scholars and historians have rightly placed him into modernism. Because when we go through and we just look at, just these three poems here we have from Hardy, we can see lots of hallmarks of modernity within these works. So, if you don't have a cup of coffee, you might want to go ahead and get one as we begin to move into modernism. So let's start with the longer of the three poems, which is Channel Firing. What this poem refers to in the years leading up to World War I, which again is the starting point for modernism, the powers in Europe recognized that war was approaching, it was on the horizon, and they just kind of kept walking into it. They really didn't take many actions to avert war, they just let it happen. And one of the things that in the months that preceded World War I is that the European powers, especially, for example, France, Germany, and England, those big three powers, would test their big guns. In the First World War, they had what were called railway guns, and there were these guns that were so big they had to be put on railway boxcars to be fired because the recoil was so much, and they would be shipped around on rails. So what they do is they would fire these big guns just to kind of bluster and to kind of show the other powers of what they were capable of. So that's a little background for the title, Channel Firing. So let's just take a look at the first stanza here. That night your great guns, unawares, shook all our coffins as we lay, and broke the chancel window squares. We thought it was the judgment day, and sat upright. Oh, did you catch that? Who's the speaker of the poem? Well, if it's our coffins as we lay, right, the speaker of this poem is not Thomas Hardy, right? No, it's a corpse, right? Because who else is laying in a coffin, right? So here we have a corpse, right, lying in a coffin, and these great guns are firing and shaking the earth so much that the coffins think it's Judgment Day and boop, pop up out of their coffin. While drearisome arose the howl of wakened hounds, so the dogs are upset by the firing of these large cannons as well, and they're howling. The mouse let fall the altar crumb, the worms drew back into the mounds, the glib cow drooled. Right, so everything's upset by the firing of these guns. So everybody's wondering, is this the apocalypse? Is this the end of the world? Till God called, no. It's gunnery practice out at sea, just as before you went below. The world is as it used to be. So everybody's up. So the dead have popped up out of their graves, right? And everybody's looking around. Is this the resurrection, God? Is this what we've been waiting for? What does God say? No. They're just firing their great guns. The world is as it was before you went below. So in other words, the world is the same now as it is before you died. And what is that? All nations striving strong to make red war yet redder. So what is everybody trying to do? Right? Trying to make war worse than it already is. Mad as hatters, they do no more for Christ's sake than you who are helpless in such matters. So these countries are not interested in improving the quality of life. they're just improving the quality of war. Oh, and this is one thing that each time that I go through and read a work of modernism, I mean, even though today in the 21st century we're no longer in modernism, but these modern writers know what it's like. Our country's, we're not interested in improving the quality of life, we're just improving the quality of war. This is not the judgment hour for some of them's a blessed thing. For if it were, they'd have to scour hell's floor for so much threatening. In other words, it's a good thing it's not the judgment day. Because if it was, somebody would have to hell of a price to pay for all the things that they've done. Ha ha! It will be warmer when I blow the trumpet, if indeed I ever do. For you are men, and rest eternal sorely need. So God's saying, you know what? Y'all are so bad. Humanity is just turned its back and is such just a decrepit, depressing, unending series of bad choices that God says, you know what? I might not ever blow the trumpet and end the world. So down we lay again. I wonder, will the world ever saner be, said one. So now the corpses are talking to each other, right? So they've gone back down and they got back in, they're snuggled up again. I wonder, will the world ever saner be, said one, than when he sent us under in our indifferent century. And many a skeleton shook his head. Instead of preaching 40 year, my neighbor, Parson Thirdly, said, I wish I had stuck to pipes and beer. Right? So now, right? So the corpses, these guns shake everything and they pop up. Oh God, is this the resurrection? Are we here? Is this what we've been waiting for? What does God say? No. And in fact, y'all been behaving, humanity is just so bad and behaving just an unending list of bad choices. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think I'm going to blow the trumpet. So then what does the pastor, the parson say? He says, I should have just stuck to drinking and smoking. And again, the guns disturbed the hour, roaring their readiness to avenge, as far inland as Stourton Tower and Camelot and starlit Stonehenge. So now, with that ending stanza, right? So this view, it's not just here at the beginning of the 20th century, but it goes throughout the history of humanity, right? Where it talks about Stourton Tower and Camelot and Stonehenge, right? This view of history of making red war redder. In other words, we're not really interested in improving the quality of life for ourselves. We're just improved the quality of war and making life the best hell that we can make it to be. Wow, modernism. What a shift that we've had from realism in the Victorian age, and even more so from where we started with romanticism. That ideal outlook in life, it's gone. It's gone. What's it been replaced by? Wow. Cynicism, right? A very depressing outlook. When we were in the Victorian age, in realism, we saw the religious doubt, right? Some uncertainty. Now, open disbelief. God's not interested in us anymore. There is going to be no resurrection. He's not going to blow the trumpet because we're not worthy of that anymore. Wow. So we still have 2 more poems by Thomas Hardy to tackle. That's a good way to start with channel firing. So we'll be right back in the next lecture with another poem.